It doesn't have to be all or nothing. If you fall off, you'll get back on. The idea is that you're trying, you're starting to focus on it, you're taking steps towards it. And just like everything else, the more you exercise that muscle of putting the work in, trying to prep foods, planning for your day, the better and better you'll get. And the sooner you start doing that, the sooner you can start working towards that. If you keep putting it off, it's never going to get better. It's only going to get worse.
You're listening to the What the Gut podcast, where busy moms can come for a holistic approach to health and vitality. I'm Allison, your host, a holistic health and wellness coach. In this space, we'll dive into the intricacies of achieving holistic wellness while balancing the demands of daily life as a busy mom. What the Gut is your haven for navigating the challenges that come with juggling numerous tasks while aiming for a healthier, more balanced life. Join me as we uncover practical solutions to common health hurdles, from managing fatigue to understanding all things gut health. Through insightful discussions, actionable insights, and tailored lifestyle strategies, my goal here is to empower you to embrace a vibrant, nourishing life while saying goodbye to being overwhelmed and exhausted. So if you're ready to embark on this transformative journey towards holistic well-being, hit that subscribe button. Get ready to discover the secrets to thriving in motherhood while nurturing your overall wellness. A quick reminder, everything discussed here is for educational and empowering purposes only and is not intended for personalized medical advice. Consult your personal healthcare provider for personalized medical advice. Welcome to What the Gut, where we create our own path to holistic health, one episode at a time. Today on the podcast, I have Dr. Buddy Touchinsky, and he is the CEO of Peak Integrative Medicine and a healthcare system disruptor committed to blending conventional, functional, and lifestyle medicine to address root causes of illness, maximize health, and support longevity and health span. And with expertise in chronic illness, mycotoxin-related issues, and foundational health, he's passionate about transforming the way care is delivered. Now, Buddy, it's awesome to have you here on the podcast today. How are you?
Doing well. It's January up here in the north, and it was -12 yesterday. It was a balmy 0 so far today. So it's a nice day to be inside and speaking with you and your audience.
Yes, awesome. I know in Mississippi here, it's super cold and it hasn't snowed, but yesterday it snowed like in New Orleans, but not here in Mississippi. So that's just the luck we get here. But anyway, we have been in touch for a while, and I've loved getting to know you, and it's awesome to have you here today on the podcast. And you were really big into gut health as well. And you told me, this was one of your first focuses whenever it really came to functional medicine. Tell me why the gut and gut health was like one of your primary focuses.
Yeah. So as you know, with functional medicine, there's 1,000,001 tests you can do, and there's lots of fancy things, and there's lots of complex chronic issues that people deal with. And also, as you know, as a functional medicine practitioner yourself, everything seems to start with how well we're digesting, how well we're eliminating, how well we're absorbing our nutrients, because if you're not getting good nutrition, you are not excreting the stuff that we need to excrete. And our microbiome, which we could talk a little bit more today, our normal microbiome, or healthy gut bacteria that live in our system, they do a lot of good for us. If that's not right, then probably no matter what else you do is going to truly help that person, and it's going to be a Band-Aid at best. So to simplify things for me, and truly it's the first step in trying to help heal someone, is just focusing on the gut, getting really good at that, and then from there, build upon that for the patient.
Yeah, I love how you said, like, just building on that foundation and starting with the gut, because I mean, you're right, like everything is connected to it, and you have to start there no matter what other health concerns you have, I believe. Now, what has your experience been with helping people with gut issues in the context of functional medicine?
Yeah, so a few things. One is, I think conventional medicine does a poor job sometimes at handling this, and I don't quite know why, because there's plenty of research now on the microbiome and the importance of gut health and the importance of elimination. But it seems like conventional, especially gastroenterology, they're focused on the physical structure of the digestive tract. They're focused on the big bad ugly things, like stomach ulcers and bleeds, polyps, colon cancer, things of that nature that you can see with a scope, you can see on a scan. And they don't focus a whole lot on what we call the functional stuff. So how well is food passing through, the effects of food on the digestive tract, the microbiome. So I think that's where functional medicine really shines. We've been looking at that stuff well before I got trained in it, probably going back 30 plus years at this point. So for those people that have been everywhere and you don't get answers, then I would look to functional medicine to try to find some of those answers for you.
Yeah, and I never really thought about it like that, but if you take a functional medicine approach, you can possibly even prevent these ulcers and polyps from even occurring. So it's a really proactive approach. Now, I know you've helped people with other things besides like the traditional gut issues. I know there's certain cases where functional medicine's helped when like all other things have failed for things like thyroid issues, things like that. Do you have any stories that are really impactful that you feel like sharing with us?
Yeah, so I've had numerous patients. They come in for things that they don't really tie to their gut health and how they're doing in that respect. So these are issues like autoimmunity, like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, brain fog, fatigue. I mean, you name it, it can really be traced back to how well our gut's functioning.
Yeah.
And I thought we'd talk a little bit about that today. Like, how is that connected? Like, how is gut health, microbiome, overgrowth of different bacteria, yeast, fungus, parasites in the gut? How can that cause things like brain fog, or how can that cause things like rheumatoid arthritis and other autoimmune disease? And the connection is this. So I like to teach, like, we have three kind of layers or three things in our digestive tract, and this is mostly going on in the small and large intestine. But we have all the stuff that floats around in the lumen or the center of that tube. So think of it as garden hose. So where the water flows in the garden hose, that's where all our food goes through as we digest it. That's where a lot of our good bacteria live. That is where sometimes or often that bad stuff lives there. So bacteria, parasites, fungus, yeast, even worms in some cases we find. So you have that's layer number one. Layer number two is you have the mucosal layer. So this is the protective layer that covers the lining of the gut or the inside of that hose. And the mucosa layer, I kind of liken it to wearing like long sleeves out when you're walking through the woods. And if you have long sleeves on and you brush up against some poison ivy, chances are well, it doesn't get exposed to the skin. So you're not going to have that poison ivy response and start to get itchy and start to develop the welts. But if you take that long sleeve shirt and you start cutting a bunch of holes in it, now the plant does interact with the skin and it irritates it and causes the poison ivy to affect your skin. So in the context of the mucosal layer, that's when the mucosal layer starts to break down and starts to reveal the skin of the gut, or that third layer, which is the gut lining itself and those cells of the gut. And so now when you have food, proteins, things like gluten, bacteria, other things that are moving through the gut, now it interacts with that surface, that skin surface, and that can create that reaction. So you create an inflammatory response there, and it almost becomes like a vicious cycle where it starts to break that down even further. But not only that is, you start to increase the gaps between the cells of the gut. So the gut is kind of like a filter, or the analogy I use there is like a screen in the window. On a nice day, I want to open up the window and let fresh air in, but I don't want a lot of bugs and mosquitoes to get in. That's why the screen's there. Fresh air in, keeps everything else out. So same thing with the cells that line the gut. There's little gaps in there, and we want nutrition to get in. So we want our nutrients to get through and protein and stuff like that, but we don't want a lot of other stuff getting in. When those gaps become wider, now we do get bigger fragments of proteins, bacterial byproducts. We get lots of other stuff in there that gets into the blood, and then that can trigger stuff body wide. But I'll pause there and before I go on to the next part.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Like, it's crazy too, because as somebody who had gut issues for like nearly 30 years, didn't know it was gut issues. And I knew I had like I had terrible psoriasis and eczema that flared up. I had terrible brain fog. I was diagnosed with ADD. I couldn't eat anything without my stomach hurting. I mean, there were so many different things, irregular bowel habits. And obviously, like, I was trained in Western medicine, and that's all I knew even before I was trained in it. And so it was like, go to a GI doctor for your gut issues, go to a dermatologist for your skin issues. And that's what I had been doing. And that's what I was trained to do as well. And so doing that too for years, like, I realized I wasn't getting any better. And through a functional medicine approach, which I didn't even really realize it was like a functional medicine approach, like things did start getting better. And so it was like once these things started getting better, I actually started studying it, and I was like mind blown at, okay, that's why these things were improving. That's how they were all connected. And so I think, yeah, like connecting these dots for listeners, knowing that like even their thyroid and autoimmune diseases are connected to their gut is really important because, you know, people out there listening, no matter what you're struggling with, they might think, okay, like I don't have gut issues, but it's like, what is the gut really? And how does it connect to everything? And so what do you think, like, whenever it comes to helping people fix their gut, what do you think that people really need to understand?
Yeah. So let's take one small step back because I missed the last part, missed the best part
Oh,
is
okay.
how does these gut issues like then cause autoimmune thyroid
Yeah.
issues, et cetera. So we'll take the next step. So now you got this stuff getting into the bloodstream that's getting through this, we call it leaky gut sometimes, or increased intestinal permeability to be technical, because a lot of doctors will say like, oh, there's no such thing as leaky gut. Well, search PubMed and put in there
Yeah.
increase intestinal permeability, zonulin, gap junction, all that stuff. And you're going to see that there's actually a bit of
I
research.
had a provider that I worked with in clinic who told me that there was no such thing as leaky gut. And I sat there with him at the computer and asked him to look this up because I was almost certain that my patient had that. And he still denied it, sitting there looking at the research. And
Yeah,
continue.
I don't get it. And this is going back like 20 years. It's not like it's the last 2 years.
Right.
They're not aware of it. So it's been around for quite a while, this concept. So now we get stuff into the bloodstream. And when something's in the bloodstream that shouldn't be there, our immune system, our immune cells recognize those things as like, hey, you shouldn't be there. We're going to tag it so that other cells can come in and eventually start to attack it. But the problem is that if that's happening every time you eat a meal, a snack, et cetera, so now you're getting lots of these interactions occurring. And now going back to my screen analogy, now I got mosquitoes flying around this office here. And I might get the fly swatter out. Boom, I hit one, no big deal. But now I got a lot flying around and it's happening often. So inadvertently, as I'm swinging things around here, I knock that lamp off the side of the table there. So now you guys start to create some damage to my office, even though I'm just trying to go after the mosquitoes and the flies. So in the body, what that looks like is, so you've got these things floating around the bloodstream. We have this immune response. And eventually when that happens enough, our immune system is almost primed to attack stuff. And depending on your genetics, it will attack different areas. So that could be Hashimoto's thyroiditis. It could cause just general brain inflammation. We get brain fog. It could hit our joints and muscles and eventually lead to arthritis, or sometimes it could be diagnosed as rheumatoid arthritis. It could cause a whole host of issues. And the skin's one of the more common things. And quick sidebar there, the reason for that is because as we're forming as an embryo, we're kind of a clump of cells. And then it folds in on one another and forms the neural tube and the digestive tract. But if you take my hand here, for instance, and I curl that in, the skin out here is the same as the skin on my palm. So it's kind of related. So when something irritates the gut, it's also going to have a high likelihood of irritating the skin as well. But yeah, these immune responses that are constantly being triggered by different particles in food and different byproducts that these organisms that live in our gut that aren't supposed to be there, they put off, can trigger these reactions all around the body.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I love the visual of it all, and thinking about how having these toxins actually get into the bloodstream. And when it happens over and over and the way your body's reacting, a lot of times people think about like autoimmune issues as your body attacking itself, but it's really more that it's trying to tell you something, you know? So whenever it comes to people like helping them fix their guts, what do you think people really need to understand?
One of the more important things is it takes time, because usually by the time you have symptoms and you've had these issues, the process has been happening for many, many years.
Yeah.
We like to start with diet first for a couple months and remove a lot of the foods that are common triggers for inflammatory reactions in the guts to take that stress off and allow the gut to heal and repair itself. It also removes a lot of the foods that feed the bacteria and organisms that shouldn't be there. So the foods I'm talking about that cause these inflammatory reactions and can feed the wrong organisms are things like processed grains. So our breads, pastas, cereals, added sugars, and for some people, dairy can be a problem. So we cut out a lot of those common food triggers, allow the gut to heal. We'll do that for a month or so, and just to see how much better we can get it, but just by doing that alone. And then if the person's had gut issues for a while, we usually end up doing a microbiome gut function test. So it tests for a variety of things, such as what do those gaps look like? There's something called zonulin. And when zonulin's high, it means those gaps are wider, which means you've a higher propensity for having that leaky gut scenario. And we look for inflammation in the gut. There's something called calprotectin. We see if there's any undigested fats to see how well your digestive system's working there. And then beyond those gut function tests, we look at the microbiome and we look for abnormal organisms, so things that should not be there. And it's not just the handful of organisms that the conventional medicine tests for, because people will usually say, oh, I had a stool test and it was negative. You get the results in, and usually it's always things like C. diff, salmonella, E. coli, and then maybe parasites are looking for eggs and larvae. And it's fine. It's good to rule that stuff out. But there's lots of other things that are considered not pathogenic like that first list, but opportunistic and can potentially trigger autoimmune issues. And there's whole sections on our test that we use. And I know you use a similar test where we can see like, okay, these bacteria, if you talk to a microbiologist, will say, yeah, there's some of that found in almost everybody. So what's the big deal? The big deal is when it grows to large amounts. And if it correlates to their symptoms that they're having, well, it might be a good idea to help the body try to remove those and then rebuild the healthy microbiome. So the next step, once we have those test results, is, all right, do we need to build their gut up for a month or two first? So like with probiotics, prebiotics, you can help boost their immune function in the gut by using different support supplements. And then after that is step 2, where we call it the killing phase, where we want to provide antimicrobials. It could be meds, could be supplements, could be a combination of both, where we help remove the stuff that shouldn't be there, help your body fight it off, help your healthy microbiome fight it off. And then at the end, you got to come back in and replenish all that. So the visual I use for this, it's like having a lawn that's just absolutely overgrown with weeds. In the beginning, you might need to fertilize the grass a little bit, get the pH right. So do some pre-fertilization, maybe some overseeding, come back later and spray just the weeds, kill the weeds off. And a lot of times conventional medicine will just do that step if they find something abnormal. So you kill the weeds off, but if you did that to your lawn and then plant anything, what would happen? The weeds would probably grow back. So the third step is then to rebuild, replenish, restore, and just build up that microbiome so that there's no room and it's less likely for other stuff to move back in, the bad stuff. Just like your lawn, if you have a green, lush lawn, keep it fertilized, keep it watered, keep the pH right, then it's less likely for those weeds to return in the long run if you take care of that. So that's like us. If we take our prebiotics, probiotics long-term, we're eating the right foods, we're feeding it good, healthy plant fibers, lean proteins, and all the good stuff that our body should have, then you're less likely to relapse back into the issues that you were coming in to be treated for in the first place.
Yeah, that's awesome. And there's such a methodical way of doing it too, like of healing your gut. You can't, and I love how you said, like, for a couple months, this is what we do. And then for another month or two, this is what we do, because you didn't get to where you are today overnight. And, you said some providers might say, oh, you had a stool test and it showed this and this, but a lot of people have that and that's not a problem. But just because a lot of people have it too doesn't mean that it's not a problem.
Right.
Just because
Yeah.
it's really common doesn't mean it's not a problem. But it's also being really proactive. Like, if you are struggling with some kind of health concern and you do a gut test, that's easily going to show you if that's the root cause of what is, proliferating all of these health concerns. And so you're just getting on top of it. Now, I recently had somebody who was diagnosed with H. pylori by their Western medicine provider, and they were just put on a bunch of antibiotics and PPIs and kind of left at that. And they asked me about it. And I was like, okay, there's so many different ways you can do this. But I mean, really understanding like how that got there in the first place, what kind of environment like it grows best in. I'm like, you're just throwing fuel to the fire at certain times. And on that note, like, I know that whenever you first got into functional medicine, you did a gut test that showed Giardia. So tell me, what was that like?
Yeah, so as I was training, one of the requirements was that you get this battery of tests yourself so that you can like work on yourself and interpret it along with the help of the clinicians that were assigned to you. And at the time, if you would ask me how I felt or how I was doing, I would have said I was fine. And I didn't think I had any problems. But then we had that test and it said I had Giardia. Then I treated myself through the process that we just talked about. And what I realized was that it wasn't normal to have loose stool every morning or every second or third day. I thought I might have ate the wrong thing, or I had a beer at dinner on a Friday night and it might have upset my stomach a little bit. But what I noticed the most was that when I would go to the gym to work out, and I was pretty consistent back then, I was participating in powerlifting. So it was like a very regimented schedule. And I just remember mornings where I would go and I'd have my workout laid out and I'd get it done, but I'd have to like grind through it. It's like I didn't have that second gear, third gear versus a couple months later, like I felt like I could really push myself and go all out and go even harder than I'd done before I'd planned to do. I noticed that my sleep got a lot better and I had less fatigue in the morning and I was able to focus more during the day. I had less brain fog and fatigue. And so, yeah, sometimes it's the boiled frog fable where if you have a frog and throw it in the cauldron of hot water, it'll jump out right away because it notices like that's a lot hotter than the outside air when it jumps in. But if you throw the frog in there and just add a few logs at a time and warm it up slowly, next thing you know, the frog's boiled. So same thing with our health. A lot of times is it's such a slow decline initially that it just becomes normal for you. But then when you feel better, it's like, holy cow, I actually feel really, really good. And I can't believe I was putting up with that for so long because you just don't know. You don't realize it.
Yeah. And I think so many people, I mean, even just the symptoms you had, like they'll chalk it up to, oh, my stomach's just upset maybe this frequently because of, IBS or something I ate or whatever, or they're getting more exhausted during the day and they think maybe it's just like because of aging or they're getting older. They'll put that on it a lot. And I know even for myself, like it was like once I healed my gut, it was like I put glasses on for the first time. And it was like, how much of life have I been missing out on? Right? Like just the way I felt and thought clearly and just everything. I mean, and I was a young mom and, I'm like, I'm so glad that I didn't let another day go by feeling like that. Like just thinking about everything I would have missed out on. But I mean, I know, like I said, so many people just chalk their symptoms up to, oh, I'm getting older or it's all in my head. What would you say to people like that?
Time's a ticking. And I usually tell my patients this. I do free phone calls with everyone that joins their practice. And I hear these things time and time again and how it's affecting their lives. But people will often justify it or make excuses for it or say like, oh, it's almost the holidays. I'm going to wait till after. Or Valentine's Day coming up in February. It's like, 4 weeks away now. So I'll just wait till after that. But then it's Easter and then it's their birthday and then it's summer vacation. So if you're having problems, you just got to make the leap. I know it can be intimidating. And especially when you start hearing about all these things that we're talking about today, we went a little bit in depth about the gut and it can seem overwhelming, but a good practitioner will simplify it for you and you'll take it one step at a time. So one thing I say is just no time like the present and get started. Take that first step and then keep that momentum going. And if you fall off track, like a lot of people are worried most about the dietary part of it, we try to make it as accessible as possible. I'm sure you do too. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. If you fall off, you'll get back on. The idea is that you're trying, you're starting to focus on it, you're taking steps towards it. And just like everything else, the more you exercise that muscle of putting the work in, trying to prep foods, planning for your day, the better and better you'll get. And the sooner you start doing that, the sooner you can start working towards that. If you keep putting it off, it's never going to get better. It's only going to get worse. And then other things usually happen downstream. So if your gut's not working well, you're not absorbing your nutrients well. Now you start to have nutrient deficiencies. You're going to have more inflammation long-term. Inflammation adds up to causing other things, everything from accelerated heart disease to here's one on the outside, premature aging. So yeah, there's no time like the present to start taking care of these things.
Yeah, I love that you emphasize that. And it reminds me a couple of years ago, whenever I did really start working on my gut and started feeling better. Soon after that, we took a family trip to Disney World for the first time. And I remember even my kids being like, aren't you so glad that you can eat this and eat that here? And like my kids at the time, well, let's see, this was a couple of years ago. Now they're like 9, 7, and 4. So at the time they were even younger than that and noticed that I was so much more present. I mean, Disney, we went for an entire week, all day, stayed out there all day. I never would have had the energy for that before. Like I never would have had the stamina. I would have had to pack my food to go everywhere. And, it's like, why wait to take care of yourself until after that vacation? I mean, I would have wasted thousands of dollars and felt like crap the whole time, And like, don't wait until, after the holidays, after that vacation, you're going to get so much more out of your life whenever you just tackle it head first. So Yeah, I agree with you. No need to wait.
I've had patients, they can't go hiking with their friends in the morning because they have loose stool until noon every day. And they get in fights with their husband because they are driving to the shore. We're about 3 hours from the shore, and they got to map out the bathrooms on the way there because they got to stop every 20 minutes on the way there. And so, yeah, it's just for people that have these problems, they know, and their friends probably look at them and roll their eyes like, how bad can it be? A little bit of diarrhea. But no, this is when you have major gut issues, it can be pretty serious stuff.
Oh yeah. I mean, it can be debilitating, but it's like, do you really want that to keep taking over your life? I don't think you realize too how much it is until you like finally get out of that because, you slowly get into that.
And it
But
responds well too. It responds well,
Mhm.
and it's fairly predictable. And knock on wood, there's very few cases where we don't get the results that people want. And you usually start seeing results within the first couple of weeks of making a lot of these changes. So it
Yeah.
feels hopeless. It feels like, oh, this can't get better. I've had it for so long. I've been to 10 different specialists. That definitely responds well to this type of approach.
Right. Just more of that holistic approach for sure. Now, buddy, I know we can find you on Instagram at Peak Integrative Medicine. And for anybody out there listening, go follow Buddy if you'd like to. Everything we've talked about today, this has been super condensed and a lot of information shortly, but full of all kinds of awesome nuggets here. Is there anything else that you want to leave our listeners with today, Buddy?
No, I think we covered it all. I mean, we could go on for another probably 2 hours covering this stuff. But yeah, if you want to follow me, I'm on social media. I like to say I'm the only Buddy Touchinsky in the world. Touchinsky with a Y is my last name. And then Peak Integrative Medicine is our practice. We're licensed to see patients in both Pennsylvania and Florida, and we might be adding some other states soon. So if you're in one of those states and you need some help, just go to www.gopeakmed.com. And that'll allow you to schedule one of those free calls, and we can talk more about your case, and we can paint a picture of what care in our practice might look like for you.
Yes. Awesome. Buddy, thank you so much for being here today. This was so much fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Allison.
Thank you for being a part of my journey on What the Gut podcast. For a deeper dive into today's topics, head over to allisonandwellness.com/whatthegut or find the detailed show notes linked below. Hey, and don't miss out on future episodes. Hit that subscribe button, and if you love this one, please leave me a review. Let's keep the conversation going over on Instagram. Connect with me and stay updated and engaged with my awesome community. Plus, share these valuable insights with your tribe. They deserve to feel as amazing as you do. You can find me at Allison_and_wellness on Instagram. Your support means the world to me. I'm looking forward to our next awesome chat. But until then, stay curious, don't drink too much coffee, keep the vibrant energy flowing, and take care of your gut. Catch you real soon. Oh, and hey, if you're ready to dive deeper into personalized wellness, check out my one-on-one health coaching program at allisonandwellness.com. Let's make your journey to holistic health truly transformative.
Hey there, it's Allison, and if you're anything like me, coffee is a non-negotiable part of your day. But did you know that most coffee is loaded with mold, toxins, and pesticides that could be messing up your gut and hormones? Yeah, no thanks. That's why I only drink Purity coffee. It's organic, tested for toxins, and it's packed with antioxidants that actually support your health instead of wrecking it. It's smooth, delicious, and best of all, it does not leave me feeling jittery or bloated. So if you're ready to upgrade your coffee game and support your gut at the same time, grab a bag of Purity coffee today. Your body will thank you. Oh, and because you are part of the What the Gut family, I've got a special link just for you. Just head to puritycoffee.com and use code AllisonGetsWell for 20% off your first order. Cheers to coffee that loves you back.